Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today is a video I've wanted to make for a while and put some action into it and got in touch with Kaweco, and they were incredibly generous to support this video, so thank you to them. Basically, I'm a big fan of the Kaweco Sport. I have a number of them in my collection and I think it's a great model of pen, and I think that they write well and all of that kind of stuff. And over the years, I've done some videos where I have compared numerous nibs from a single model, and I wanted to do the same here for Kaweco. I wanted to show all the nibs that are available or that kind of fit the Kaweco Sport. Now, the only one that's not being covered in this is the gold nibs, and I'm planning a second video where I just compare one of those with its steel equal. So what I've done is I've actually taken a piece of rhodia here and I have written with each of the nibs that are available for the Kaweco Sport. Now, when I say available, I mean that fit it. So the Kaweco Sport, depending on the retailer you go to, will stock whatever they sort of, are able to stock or that sells through them. But what is available across the board that fit it is everything from an extra fine here through to what is called the twin Bock nib, which is a fascinating nib, and of course as well as the calligraphy nibs that you can get for it. So what I've done is I've just written on, this is with Kaweco black ink. I've inked up each of the nibs in a pen and have written with it, and I thought we'd just have a quick look in comparison. So let's start with the extra fine. This nib doesn't scream extra fine to me. It's a very Western extra fine. In comparison to, say, an extra fine from Platinum, it is not going to compare. This is much thicker. It's much closer to the fine, and we see the similarity between the extra fine and the fine here in these steel nibs that are available. And these are the nibs that are available now, not the old nibs. So just so you're aware, this is 2021 and this is what is available now. Then we get the fine to the medium, and with the medium we start to see a little bit of more, breadth in the line. Not super wet, but very smooth, very well tuned, all of those sorts of things. And then with the broad, and then going of course into the double broad, we start to get some real broad lines. Now, if you look at the difference between the extra fine and the double broad, of course there is a big difference, but it does move quite gradually, and that is not a super broad, extra broad or double broad. It's kind of more what you'd get from a Jowo standard number 6 broad, and kind of like goes down from there. So the range between the extra fine and the double broad is not huge, but these are as I said, these are all nibs I was sent by Kaweco, and so I have, I'm judging them based on these. There have been talk of inconsistency between the nibs, and an extra fine can sometimes be anything from like an extra fine to a medium and that kind of thing. What you get is what you get, and this is what I got. So you can see a difference between these 5 nibs. You can see the gradient of them. The double broad being the wettest there. Actually, the broad being the least wet, which was rather interesting. And then the rest being sort of fairly consistent. If we move now to the calligraphy nibs, these are interesting. So we have a 1.1, a 1.5, a 1.9, and a 2.3. You can definitely see those variations going up. And the line is fairly close to that, if just slightly narrower than the number given to it. And I think that is because they are not a sharp italic. They're not, the edges of the nib are not super, I'll draw what I mean. Like, instead of being very sharp corners, on the nib, like that, you do have sort of a rounder corner. So you are getting sort of like that width as opposed to that width, if that makes sense. And so it is slightly narrower than the number allocated to it. But what we have is the 1.1, as the 1.5, definitely bigger. The 1.9 is, marginally bigger than the 1.5, and then the 2.3 is definitely the widest. And actually, it's a fun nib to write with. I struggle with stub nibs a little bit, being left-handed, just to get that sort of even purchase on the page. But they're good. They're quite wet. They're laying down a lovely, nice line of ink, and it's nice to see that, like, you get putting down a good amount of ink with these nibs. Then we get the fun one, the Kaweco Calligraphy Steel Twin Bock nib. Now, I have it here in a sport at the moment. So if you look at the nib, it's got 2 tines, or 3 tines, 2 slits, and one going down, and then there's like a little gap just there between, in the middle of the nib. And so you get like basically what is a kind of a fine medium nib, and then what I've equated to about a 1.5 millimeter nib writing at the same time. Hence why you get these kinds of lines. You get a thin line and then a fine line. The flat line, so that's just straight down, equal purchase on the page, gives you that little like 1.5-ish millimeter line, and then like something around the medium. And then you can write on just the fine edge by turning the nib so that you're writing like, on an angle, and just get the flat edge. So here I've done like the K with the full, and then written around it, with just the half side. So it gives you a bit of variety, and it would be great for some calligraphy techniques and those kinds of things. And of course gives you parallel lines. It's a really interesting nib, not super, super wet, but, does a lovely job. And once again, it's that issue of making sure you get equal purchase on the page across both nibs, so you actually get the full writing experience of it. But this gives you an idea. It's a nib that does take some practice. So what I thought I'd do is I've got 3 actually still inked up here. I have the Broad, the 1.1, and the Twin Bock. I thought I'd just do a quick little writing sample of them for you here, just live on camera. So we'll start with the Broad here. So you can hear it's smooth. It's laying down a nice amount of ink. And it's a really enjoyable nib to write with. I do not think it is a full broad, but I think it's a nice sort of broad medium. That's how I would, sort of, if I was drawing it with this, not knowing what nib it was, that's sort of what I would say. But very, very nice. The next is here in the Sage model, which is this is a exclusive, or was an exclusive to Milligram, which is a retailer here in Australia that I really enjoy and actually currently work for. Didn't work for when I got this pen. What we have here is the Kaweco. This is the 1.1. So this is a calligraphy nib, and it's listed as a calligraphy nib. You can buy it in the calligraphy sets from Kaweco. I think there is a sport calligraphy set, and I think there's also a Pacquiao calligraphy set, as well as probably others. Typical stub nib, sort of broad on the downstroke and then narrow on the side stroke, and it's got a good definition of it there. So like you are very much getting, your stub nib, calligraphy nib properties from the writing. And then of course the last one here in my burgundy, which is actually the first Kaweco Sport I got. I really liked this color. I like the gold trim. I didn't love the nib that came on it. And I think this particular nib is also going to take a little bit of getting used to. But let's see it in action. Oh, I'm not lining it up particularly well. I think with a bit of practice, you'd get better at writing with this nib. And as I said, you get like a broad and a fine line when it is lined up properly on the page. But then if you turn it, as I said, you can get a nice medium fine it's a bit scratchier, but that allows you to sort of do some detail work, which is sort of like what I did up here. So that is the current available range of nibs from Kaweco that fit the Kaweco Sport model. Extra fine, fine, medium, broad, double broad. Then the calligraphy nibs, the 1.1, the 1.5, the 1.9, and the 2.3 millimeter. So they come in a separate set. And then the twin Bock, which is kind of hard to get, but if you're interested in it, it's a really super interesting and fun nib to write with. So a massive, massive thank you to Kaweco for providing these nibs for me to show in this video, because I do enjoy the model. I have a number of them. Probably the Red Fox is the one that gets the most use for me. But it's a model I enjoy. It's a model that I know people love, and being able to compare the nibs and show what you can expect. As I said, there may be some inconsistencies, but this is literally the grab bag that I was sent. So, you know, it's turned out okay here. So once again, massive, massive thanks to Kaweco for their support and for providing these nibs for this video. I hope you found it interesting and useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button if you want to stay up to date with the videos that I produce. Please feel free to get in touch using any of the platforms listed below. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at @the_offstage_me, or you can contact me on any of my videos here, or drop me an email which is listed down below. If you've got products you think I should be looking at, or if there's a way you'd like to support the channel by sponsoring a review or providing an item for review, I would love to hear from you. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.